Reconstruction was the period between 1865 and 1877 when the country sought racial reconciliation, healing, and rebuilding the South. Black men were enfranchised and exercised their right to vote. They were also overwhelmingly members of the Republican Party, the party of Lincoln. Black men voted and were elected to local and state offices. Blacks were also appointed to fill seats vacated by the seceding Confederate states. Republican Hiram Revels of Mississippi was the first black senator of the United States in 1870. He was appointed to fill the remaining term of Senator Albert Brown, who had vacated his seat when Mississippi seceded. In the state of Mississippi, blacks represented 20% of the elected official. Yeah, in Mississippi in 1870. During Reconstruction, the federal government helped the South rebuild. They also kept federal troops in the southern states to ensure the South followed through with granting the newly freed people their rights to citizenship. But not everybody was happy about this, and they weren't happy about the shakeup of the social order of the antebellum South. Okay, now I want you to sit back and relax, because the Compromise of 1877 is going to rock your world and sound eerily familiar. Okay, 1876 was an election year, and at the top of the ticket for the Republican Party was former Ohio Governor Rutherford B. And at the top of the ticket for the Democrats was another governor. His name was Samuel Tilden of New York. It was a contentious election with both sides accusing the other of fraud. I bet that sounds very familiar, doesn't it? Mark Twain said, "History doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes." We're rhyming big times right now. The election of 1876 was a mess, with both sides accusing each other of electoral misdeeds. Race riots and civil unrest broke out as the Democrats were trying to wrestle political power back from the Republican Party in the southern states. People were killed. This even impacted Hiram Revels, and he became disillusioned with what he saw as corruption within the Republican Party. And he shocked many Southern blacks when he started supporting some Democrats over Republicans. Remember, blacks were primarily members of the Republican Party back then. Northerners had also moved south and won political seats. The South called them carpetbaggers and scallywags, and they didn't like this at all. In the presidential election, Samuel Tilden of New York won the popular vote, but he was one vote shy of winning the Electoral College. In 1876, the number of Electoral College votes needed to win the election was 185. Tilden had 184 Electoral College votes. Now, the U.S. Constitution isn't at all clear on how to handle this, so President Grant established the Electoral Commission to settle the dispute between the electoral votes. This effectively pushed the election back to the states. 4 states were in dispute for a total of 20 electoral votes. Hayes made a deal with the South that if they gave him their votes, when he became president, he would withdraw federal troops from the South. The South was like, okay, cool. And you must also guarantee that the North would not interfere with how the South treats its Negroes. Hayes was like, okay, deal. The last 4 remaining states gave their electoral votes to Hayes and thus gave him the presidency by 1 vote. Now, if this feels eerily familiar to you, that's because that is precisely what Donald Trump tried to do during the 2020 election. Pushing the presidential election to the states give the Republican the advantage. Why? Because there are more Republican-led states than there are Democratic-led states. If the Electoral College votes are in dispute, like it was here in 1876, then the election is not yet decided. As soon as the Electoral College votes are certified, then the election is no longer in dispute. So when you think about what Senator Mike Lee of Utah, for instance, was doing when he was calling Republican lawmakers ahead of them certifying their Electoral College votes, this was the scenario they were trying to create. Even Senator Lee knew that once those votes were certified, it was over. It needed to be done before those votes were certified. And the votes were certified because no fraud was found. There was nothing to dispute. The election was over. It is not ironic that most of the votes that were in dispute and that they wanted to challenge were from high African American and Hispanic turnout. In 1877, this was not the case. The Electoral College votes were not yet certified. The states gave Hayes their votes, and he won the election by one Electoral College vote. That's all he needed. This became known as the Compromise of 1877. The federal troops withdrew from the South and let the South do what it wanted with its Negroes. This was the beginning of 87 years of Jim Crow.